What's up, you guys? It's Steve here, and a lot of stuff unfolding today. I've got a lot of news to get you caught up on. This is your breaking news and stimulus check update. Now, we're going to be talking about what's happening right now with Russia and Ukraine. Also, what's happening with the state of the pandemic and the Super Bowl, masking. We're also going to be talking about inflation and the state of the economy and what investors can expect. So a lot to cover, a lot of video footage, and also stimulus checks. If you missed my previous videos, you might want to check them out, as I cover for you all 50 states, state stimulus checks, and I even cover a couple city and county checks and UBI programs available as well. Check that one out if you missed it. Also, we got word that today, President Joe Biden is going to be issuing executive orders to reallocate existing funds to help out with Afghanistan. Now, that's going to be $7 billion, but what we're hearing is there's an additional $800 billion, 800, left over from previous stimulus packages. And just to let you know how much that is, that's enough for 2 additional stimulus checks of $1,400, a fourth and a fifth. Check out that video to get caught up on that. But you guys, I've got a lot of new breaking news to get you caught up on with Russia and Ukraine and potential war. Now, we heard directly from the White House, and they're saying, if you're an American in Ukraine, get out now. And they're saying you have 24 to 48 hours. They would like you to evacuate now. Now, I'm going to be sharing with you what it was they had to say, and they're saying if you stay, you are assuming potential risk because they do not know what is going to be unfolding here, and they're saying this is likely going to be happening before the Olympics end. So an update on the time frame. Now, also, we have an update for you on the pandemic, and we're hearing that mask mandates are being lifted all across the nation in various states. They're saying it might be a little bit premature, but experts are saying they think that this might actually be the end of the pandemic. And though, however, for the Super Bowl this weekend, and let me know who you think's going to take it. Is it going to be the Rams or the Bengals? We're hearing, though, that they are going to be requiring masks. So I'm going to share with you some updates on that. And also inflation, which is the huge news that came out this week, that it was reported at 7.5%, the highest it's been in 40 years, since I think it was 1982. And they're saying that this is going to be impacting the stock market and investors and what to keep an eye out for. Now, we're hearing the Federal Reserve, they're going to be hiking up those interest rates to try to combat inflation. And back in the 80s, they had them hiked up quite a bit. So we've got quite a ways to go. So I've got some video footage to get you caught up on that as well. So a lot to dive into, a lot happening. I will keep you up to date here on the channel. So let's dive right in, and do me a favor very quick. If you appreciate the updates, smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Helps me out a ton. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Also, leave your comments. Love to hear your thoughts. Share this out if you think it's going to help out other people. If this is your first time here and you want to stay up to date, totally free. Hit the subscribe button. Turn on the notification bell. You can come join the Ram fam. You can reach me easily on Instagram. Shoot me a DM at SteveRam3. And also, check out my second channel, Steve Ram Finance, to learn about growing wealth and personal finance. But with that being said, you guys, let's go ahead and dive right in. And let's start off with some video footage on the breaking news of what's happening in Ukraine and Russia.
Thanks, everybody, for giving me the opportunity to be here. I'd like to make a few comments on the situation in Russia and Ukraine, and then I'd be happy to take your questions. We continue to see signs of Russian escalation, including new forces arriving at the Ukrainian border. As we've said before, we are in the window when an invasion could begin at any time, should Vladimir Putin decide to order it. I will not comment on the details of our intelligence information, but I do want to be clear. It could begin during the Olympics, despite a lot of speculation that it would only happen after the Olympics. As we've said before, we are ready either way. We are ready to continue results-oriented diplomacy that addresses the security concerns of the United States, Russia, and Europe, consistent with our values and with the principle of reciprocity. We've continued to make that clear to Russia in close coordination with our European allies and partners. We are also ready to respond decisively alongside those allies and partners should Russia choose to take military action. Our response would include severe economic sanctions, with similar packages imposed by the European Union, the United Kingdom, Canada, and other countries. It would also include changes to NATO and American force posture along the eastern flank of NATO, and it would include continued support to Ukraine. The President held a secure video conference today with key allies and partners to coordinate our approach to this crisis. The participants were the UK, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, Poland, Romania, the Secretary General of NATO, and the presidents of the European Union. We have achieved a remarkable level of unity and common purpose from the broad strategy down to the technical details. If Russia proceeds, its long-term power and influence will be diminished, not enhanced by an invasion. It will face a more determined transatlantic community. It will have to make more concessions to China. It will face massive pressure on its economy and export controls that will erode its defense industrial base. And it will face a wave of condemnation from around the world. If, on the other hand, Russia truly seeks a diplomatic outcome, it should not only say so, it should pursue that diplomatic outcome. We are prepared to do that. We have put concrete proposals on the table. They are now out there for the world to see. We're prepared to engage on them and to discuss the principles and parameters of European security with our European partners and with Russia. Whatever happens next, the West is more united than it's been in years. NATO has been strengthened. The alliance is more cohesive, more purposeful, more dynamic than at any time in recent memory. In terms of immediate next steps, President Biden and his team will remain in close contact with our allies and partners to coordinate both on the potential for diplomacy and on any response that is necessary should Putin decide to order military action. We are continuing to reduce the size of our embassy footprint in Kyiv, and I now want to take a moment to echo what both President Biden and Secretary Blinken have already said. We encourage all American citizens who remain in Ukraine to depart immediately. We want to be crystal clear on this point. Any American in Ukraine should leave as soon as possible, and in any event in the next 24 to 48 hours. We obviously cannot predict the future. We don't know exactly what is going to happen, but the risk is now high enough, and the threat is now immediate enough, that this is what prudence demands. If you stay, you are assuming risk, with no guarantee that there will be any other opportunity to leave, and no prospect of a U.S. military evacuation in the event of a Russian invasion. If a Russian attack on Ukraine proceeds, it is likely to begin with aerial bombing and missile attacks that could obviously kill civilians without regard to their nationality. A subsequent ground invasion would involve the onslaught of a massive force. With virtually no notice, communications to arrange a departure could be severed and commercial transit halted. No one would be able to count on air or rail or road departures once military action got underway. Now again, I'm not standing here and saying what is going to happen or not happen. I'm only standing here to say that the risk is now high enough and the threat is immediate enough that prudence demands that it is the time to leave now. While commercial options and commercial rail and air service exist, while the roads are open. The president will not be putting the lives of our men and women in uniform at risk by sending them into a war zone to rescue people who could have left now but chose not to. So we are asking people to make the responsible choice.
So there you have it, you guys. I will be sure to keep you up to date on that. So that is what's happening right now. That's the breaking news with Ukraine and Russia. That was directly from the White House. Now, in addition to that, we also have word that things are starting to calm down a little bit with the Omicron variant and the pandemic. And we're seeing here that experts are saying that we might be out of this. Now, let's take a look at some video footage and update on this, and also how things are going to be going with the Super Bowl this weekend.
There is so much confusion right now about wearing masks. You've got some data about that. What can you tell us?
Well, we're seeing that overall levels of COVID are dropping rapidly, but we're not out of the woods yet. They're still at the same levels that they were last year during the peak in January 2021. Now, while they're continuing to drop and these masks are concerned that there's going to be potential surges in cold and flu activity and confusion around what you have, COVID versus flu. But we're luckily seeing Omicron levels drop very rapidly.
And as far as Omicron levels and the spread currently, what are we expecting in the weeks ahead when you look at the numbers?
We expect Omicron levels to continue to go down. As you know, KINS has developed a unique ability to forecast illness over the past 7 years. And what we're expecting is that as mask mandates come down, especially in schools, there will be an increased level of cold and flu activity. We're expecting that there will be a long tail to this illness season with cold and flu activity continuing, but we're not expecting to see another surge in COVID cases.
Shaq, talk to us about the Super Bowl. That's going to be a lot of people in one place screaming and shouting.
That's right, 70,000 people in the stadium behind me. And you guys were just talking about masks. Well, those are going to be required for the fans attending the game. You were talking about vaccinations. There's a proof of vaccination that's required. They cross-check that with your ID. If you don't have vaccination, then you need that negative COVID test that was taken recently. And look, it's not just the game we're talking about. If you look around the LA area where you have many of these Super Bowl fan events, we're talking about the parties, we're talking about the fan NFL live experience, which is downtown in the convention center, and talked to some of the fans there. You know, the NFL is trying to make this as easy as possible for folks. There's a vaccination clinic outside. There's also rapid testing available for people, and it seems to be working. Listen to what the folks told me.
Man, I got my booster shot.
You got your booster here at the NFL experience?
I am, yeah. I heard I could get in for free if I got the shot, and I needed it. It was pulling up on my 5 months, so it all worked out.
It's no big deal. I mean, as long as you're trying to be safe, trying to be you worry about other people too. You don't want nobody else to get sick. So it's a good way to protect each other.
I think they control it pretty good. They check everybody's vaccination. Everybody wears masks for the most part. I feel comfortable. I'm very serious about it, so I feel comfortable.
Steph, I have to tell you that so many fans were just appreciative of the fact that they were here in LA, available to enjoy the game, the buzz and energy. You really felt it down there. You know, if you look back just a month or so ago, as we were in the peak of this Omicron surge, there was genuine speculation over whether or not this Super Bowl would look like other Super Bowls, whether the stadium would be full. Fans are just happy they're here and able to participate in these festivities.
So there you have it, you guys. Some encouraging good news that we might finally be seeing our way out of this pandemic. They said lifting the mask mandates might be a little bit premature, but they said they believe that we might be on our way out of this. So that's really encouraging as Omicron is starting to subside. Now, on the other hand, though, the not so good news is now we're dealing with stuff with Russia and Ukraine. And then here domestically now we're dealing with inflation, and we're dealing with $30 trillion worth of debt, and interest rates are going to start going up. So let's take a look at this. And this is one of the major concerns with Senator Joe Manchin. As I mentioned to you before, he said he didn't want to pass that Build Back Better bill because of debt and inflation. And he said that if we're going to pass some form of stimulus, he wants it fully paid for, which is why we keep bringing up that leftover $800 billion, because it's already been put into the system. And if they allocated it for checks or some other provisions, it would not add to the debt or inflation. But let's take a look at concerns and where things stand right now. Let's take a look at this video footage.
Dom, inflation is a bad thing for the consumer, but what does it mean for markets? Because consumer demand is up. We don't like paying higher prices, but we're doing it, and companies are making a whole lot of money off of us.
All right, so the part that's getting a lot of attention, as you point out, is the stock market, specifically those stocks that are kind of geared more towards things like technology or media or communications. So as interest rates creep higher in response to that rising inflationary pressure, the relative attractiveness of those types of stocks, that starts to kind of go away, because in a world of really low interest rates like we've been living in, you're willing to accept a lot of risk just to make any kind of return. But when rates start to rise, there's actually a hard choice that needs to be made about taking risk-free returns from the government in your treasury bonds or taking stock market risk. Now, corporate profits, you mentioned those, Stephanie, also a big concern as well. A lot of companies, large and small, by the way, have already cited pressures on profit margins because of things like rising raw material and input costs, rising transportation and fuel costs, rising labor costs. Now, for investors, oftentimes you're buying a stock in a company because you think they're going to grow their profits, and their share of the company's profits becomes more valuable over time. If those profits are threatened, you're maybe not as likely to want to invest in a company's stock. So yes, there is a reason why a lot of folks from Main Street to Wall Street to K Street are all very hyper-focused on that threat of rising prices. Oh, and by the way, Stephanie, let's not forget, the U.S. has around, roughly $30 trillion of national debt. A lot of that debt is structural and needs to get refinanced periodically. If rates go higher, it'll cost our country even more to pay interest on that load of debt. So a lot of concerns here, Steph.
Sure will. I want to play what President Biden had to say during his interview with Lester Holt, specifically about inflation. Watch this.
it's ought to be able to start to taper off as we go through this year. I think what you're going to see is a gradual reduction in inflation over time. In the meantime, I'm going to do everything in my power to deal with the big points that are impacting most people in their homes.
All right, Steve, he says it's going to taper off, but when you look at this new data, it makes a good case that this is not temporary. What do you think?
I think it will taper off. You remember the old posters that people used to put up, Stephanie, wanted dead or alive? You know, Fed Chairman Jay Powell gave a speech, I don't know, several months ago, and he said, inflation is going to come down one way or the other. Let's talk about what those basically two ways are. Either inflation is going to come down on its own, or the Fed is going to clamp down on the economy and slow the economy and cause it to come down. There's really no two ways about it. There is political consensus, economic consensus that inflation is too high. We have the policy tools to bring it down. Think about it, Steph. The Fed hasn't even raised rates at all, but even thinking about raising rates has caused interest rates to rise by 1%, caused mortgages to go up. So the Fed remains very powerful. The Fed has the ability to bring it down. It has the political consensus of both parties to do so. Inflation is going to come down, with the main question being, does that create lots of pain on Wall Street, on Main Street?
So there you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts. I know we covered a lot in this video, but there is a lot going on, and as it continues to unfold, I'll keep you up to date here on the channel. And as always, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. If you made it this far and you haven't already, don't forget, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. If you appreciate the updates, just takes a second, helps out my channel a ton. Thank you so much. Also, leave your comments, share this out. If this is your first time here, totally free to stay up to date and come join the Ram fam. All you gotta do is hit the subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and if you got any specific questions for me, I'm easy to get a hold of directly. All you gotta do is hop onto Instagram, shoot me a DM at SteveRam3. But with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. Oh, and also remember that second channel, Steve Ram Finance, if you're interested in growing wealth and personal finance. But with that being said, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. I will catch you in the next one. Likely going to be Super Bowl Sunday or Monday, because tomorrow, taking the family out to a monster truck rally, and then Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. So I might catch you guys Monday. We'll see if anything pops up over the weekend. But I hope this reaches you well. Have a blessed evening. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.